I'm a guy from New Orleans, I'll do no harm, yeah, pacifist playthrough, bitch. Alright, today we're completing Dead Island without killing anybody. One bullet point, everybody knows the rules. Why did I choose Sam B? You'll find out in just a moment. Now, since I wasn't allowed to attack any enemies for the entire playthrough of the game, I started off by letting out my rage and kicking down a shit ton of doors. 90 doors, to be exact. This unlocked all 4 stages of the Party Crasher in-game challenge and boosted me to level 6 right from the very beginning. I was pretty much just capitalizing on any way that I could get XP without actually engaging in combat. But sooner or later I had to rescue Cinemoy in order to complete the prologue, but the only problem was, Cinemoy is always being grappled by a zombie during this part, and the only way to interrupt the grapple is to directly attack the zombie with weapons or a simple kick. Even if I was to bend the rules just a little bit by throwing a propane tank or using a car to run over the zombie, those options don't even work. In the definitive edition of the game, you can just run away to reset Cinemoy and all the enemies, but I was playing the OG version where Cinemoy dies no matter how far you travel, unless you travel to a different map entirely. So I beelined it all the way to the Bloodbath Arena DLC, and then when I came back to the resort, Cinemoy's health was no longer going down. Now I had a way to buy myself more time and even level up a little bit by completing the Treasure Hunter challenge. But I still needed to find a way to help Cinemoy. Luckily, the Bloodbath Arena includes 4 blueprints for different elemental bombs, one of which is a stun bomb that doesn't deal any damage. I got my hands on the blueprint, crafted just a single stun bomb, returned to Cinemoy, and success! With Cinemoy freed from purgatory, it was time for him to unleash the beast and violently lay the dead to rest. If I can't kill any zombies, I guess I'll just have a hunk of a lifeguard do it for me. And just like that, we finished the prologue and made it into Act 1. Now the next step was securing the lifeguard tower as a safe haven, but that required a lot of killing. So I did what any man would do. I ran away and I started stealing people's luggage over at the nearby hotel. After rummaging through a few hundred bags, I finally finished the Treasure Hunter challenge and I unlocked my secret weapon for this playthrough. Backfire. This skill is the whole reason why I chose Sam B for this challenge, and the way that it works is really simple. When an enemy knocks me to the ground, that damage backfires to them, and not only that, but since I had all 3 ranks, that damage was tripled. So sure, a zombie might just smack me in the face and deal 40 damage, but that means they're actually dealing 120 damage to themselves. And from here, you can probably guess exactly what my game plan was, and let me tell you, it was glorious. I watched as zombies' limbs somehow just magically exploded from touching me, and if you don't know already, enemies in Dead Island are just super polite, and they don't continue attacking you when you're on the ground, which gave me plenty of time to recover enough health to absorb one more hit. I just had to make sure that I had 0 stamina so they could knock me down, and that was pretty easy. I just had to do a couple jump kicks each time. It was all going pretty smoothly, and then I ran into the first boss zombie, the Thug. Now, since every attack from the Thug knocks the player down anyway, I didn't even have to worry about draining my stamina, so that kind of worked to my advantage. And so I kept tanking hits until he spontaneously combusted all over the place, and then I gave that same treatment to every other zombie in the building. Now, I should probably mention that this ability gets less effective the more you level up, since enemy health scales higher than their damage output. So from here, the plan was to level up as little as possible. Sorry side quest NPCs, I have eyes only for Cinemoy. The dreamy lifeguard needed juice to maintain his vitamin C levels, and he told me he'd give me some vitamin D later. So I used my free running skills to rob the local gas station. It kinda makes me think that Techland should make a zombie game with parkour. Anyway, I loaded the juice onto the back of a pickup and slowly made my way back to the lifeguard tower, being very careful not to accidentally kill any zombies. And in the OG version of the game that I was playing, you can just push enemies out of the way if you drive slow enough, so it was super easy not to fail the challenge that way. I delivered the juice straight back to Cinemoy, but it just wasn't enough. The guy is thirsty, he had his set sight on moving to the city and drinking all the juice there, but first, we needed a sturdy enough truck to make it through the blockades, so he sent me to the hotel to go and get one from the basement. Usually this quest is a pretty long one, but it turns out there's only one section where you have to do any killing, so I just breezed right through. I collected some champagne along the way, and it wasn't long before I reached this corridor where you're supposed to kill exactly 3 zombies and hack your way through the security system to continue, and luckily for me, I knew a shortcut. You see what I just did there? I just breached this here firewall and started hacking into the Royal Palms Resort computer network just like that. But there's no way I'd be able to pull this off if the hotel was using NordVPN, especially with the latest desktop and mobile app feature called Threat Protection. I mean, a strange man phasing through a solid glass window and hacking your computer is a pretty big threat if you ask me. Not only would this feature protect the hotel computers from malicious websites, malware, trackers, and intrusive ads, but it's also designed to remain constantly switched on regardless of the VPN connection. So even in a zombie apocalypse, the threat protection feature would still be doing its thing. And of course, with it being a VPN and everything, Mike Davis would also just be able to change his virtual location to one of 59 different countries to choose from so that he could play video games or watch Netflix shows that just aren't available locally in the island of Banoi. In just a few moments, Mike could be securely browsing the internet and enjoying the latest anime with his virtual location set to Japan. And all he'd have to do is go to nordvpn.com/colossalkiwi to get a 2-year plan with a huge discount plus 1 additional month for free. And it would even be risk-free for the hotel because of Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. But luckily for me, the hotel did not have NordVPN and I was able to hack my way through their security and steal the truck. I safely drove that thing all the way back to Sinamoi without killing a single zombie, and then I went to investigate a helicopter crash. Now this is where I was introduced to my favorite type of infected for the entire challenge, the suicider. Not only do they just take care of themselves, but I could also use them to eliminate other enemies. This quest was super important for 2 reasons. Number 1, it was the first escort mission of the entire game, but it was pretty easy to do and honestly he did most of the work. And number 2, this gave me access to the brown skull Easter egg item, so I planted it at a secret location, I picked up a mysterious blueprint, traded in my champagne for diamonds, and crafted a developer weapon called the Left Hand of Glover. It's a pretty cool weapon that knocks enemies onto the ground and deals a bit of elemental damage, but the reason why I wanted it is because each attack drains 100% of your stamina, even when you don't successfully hit an enemy. It basically just cut out the need for me to do a bunch of Karate Kid style jump kicks to drain my stamina, and it made the backfire method a whole lot easier. And man, it really came in handy for the Pimp My Ride quest, which still took a bloody long time, but we eventually reinforced that bad boy and made our way to the city. On one condition. I was now on babysitting duty for the mechanic's daughter. I arrived at the city and made my first stop at the local church, where I had to face off with one of the deadliest boss zombies in the entire game, the Ram. But it turns out he was even easier to take care of than the regular walkers, because all I had to do was bait him into the fire, and then I even used them to knock over the other zombies and set them on fire. I barely had to break a sweat, until the next quest, where things just got really complicated. Mother Helen sent me to the pump station since the water supply had been cut off. The only thing was that the place had been overtaken by bandits with guns. And it turns out there's no way to get knocked to the ground by bullet damage, which means I could no longer rely on the old backfire method to get these enemies to kill themselves. Or could I? I got my good friend Crayfish the Arrow to join my game as we tested out some ideas when we discovered something huge, colossal even. When you die in co-op, your character lays on the ground for a moment waiting for a team member to revive you. You know, it's pretty standard stuff. But it turns out that the game considers this to be a knockdown, which led to a huge breakthrough. I finally had a solution for dealing with gun enemies, and it basically just came down to recruiting a friend to follow me around as my personal medic and just revive me every time I died. It was pretty slow, but the important thing is that it worked. And luckily, these were the only human enemies for now, so Crayfish performed a magic act and disappeared while also making my health disappear. The immediate next quest to shut off the fire hydrants was pretty easy, since all I had to do was slowly park a car next to each one, climb on top, and complete the process without even getting interrupted. If only this next quest was that easy. It was time for the infamous Joseph Escort quest. This exact moment is where the game becomes significantly less fun, so much so that it has its own speedrun category called Joseph%. Things actually didn't start off off too bad, and Joseph managed to hold his own, but that very quickly changed, and he definitely sacrificed himself a few times in a row. One of the skills I unlocked earlier increased my threat and gave me more aggro, which proved to really come in handy for these escort quests. You see, when I did the typical backfire method, Joseph would just get destroyed while I was on the ground, but if I stayed standing upright, the walkers would target me most of the time, and I could pull them away from Joseph, and then just get him to engage in a series of 1v1s. And even though he'd still get beat up pretty badly, he always managed to come out on top, and then by the time he did get killed, I'd already reached a new checkpoint, and then he was back to full health. And really, it was just this little market area that gave us a lot of trouble, but after that, he managed to run straight to the sewers where I encountered the floater boss zombie. Just by far the most annoying zombie type so far, mainly because the moveset is so unpredictable. There were so many times where I would drain my stamina and hope that he would hit me to the ground, only just to end up dying from his Bo Raicho vomit spray. But eventually the bastard went down, and I managed to speed through the sewers and into the town hall, where everything was just like Nolan's. I met the fat fuck mayor who told me that access to the supermarket was strictly prohibited, so I bribed a security guard, wet his whistle a little bit, and made my way through, only to immediately regret it when I started getting shot in the face. Luckily, I had my pocket healer on speed dial, and we cleared through the entire section, including 2 boss enemies with AK-47s. Seriously, if you guys have any other ideas on how to take care of gun enemies in a pacifist way, I would love to hear it, because right now, I'm pretty convinced it isn't even possible on solo. Anyway, we got the job done. I enjoyed a super glitchy cutscene, I told the fat zombie mayor to suck a dick, and I returned to the church, only to find out that Jin had been captured by some punks at the police station. Honestly, I'd already forgotten that I was on babysitting duty. Now, just for a moment, I want you to imagine that you're a bandit in a police station. You've got all your guys there, and can you think of anything more terrifying than a huge dude calmly walking into your base, saying, "You're lost," and then eating bullets until everyone around you dies? Because that's exactly what happened, thanks to my guardian angel once again, Crayfish the Arrowed. Alright, it was time to play good cop, bad cop and teach Jin a lesson for running away.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Nicely done, I'm a good person. And honestly, the next quest just made me wish we'd left her behind, because it was another escort quest, but I guess Jin was doing a pacifist run too, because she wouldn't fight back. Seemingly no matter what I did, Jin just kept getting knocked off a cliff, either by the zombie, which caused the mission to fail because she immediately died, or I would knock her off the cliff, which led to her getting stuck. She wouldn't die, but she just couldn't do anything. But eventually I managed to lure the infected away from her, and I cleared out all the enemies in advance. So we blew open the door to the bunker and we teleported to Act 3, the jungle. And in my first quest there, I ran into the strongest zombie in the entire game, the Butcher. Not only are they terrifying, but they're fast, they deal high damage, they drain your stamina with their attacks, and they heal themselves. So naturally, I ran away. For some reason, unlike all the other boss zombies when they're introduced, the Butcher is the only one you don't actually have to kill. So I managed to get him stuck behind a big log, and oh god, okay, so he chased me, and he did not give up. So I led him all the way to the quest objective and used him as a distraction while I stole the ammunition for the quest and made it clean getaway. I honestly feel really bad for those humans. Now the jungle section of Dead Island is super short, but there was still one more big mission in my way. I had to kill some goofball named Afran. So I infiltrated his compound, I absorbed a bunch of bullets from his goons, and luckily I didn't actually have to kill anyone for the quest, and I was doing pretty well until I reached a locked door that I had to go through. But it was really hard to kick it down while I was getting shot in the back by multiple people. I ended up getting really close, but there was no way I was able to finish the entire animation, so I looked around for a bit and I ended up crawling underneath the house and performing a magic trick by opening the doors from the other side. This loaded up the next quest objective and it brought me to Afran himself. Now, with him being a gun enemy and everything, you know I had to bring back my boy Crayfish. Now we've always both considered Afran to be the hardest boss in the game during a regular playthrough of Dead Island, so we knew that we were in for a bad time. It was a pretty glitchy, long struggle with many ups and downs and twists and turns, and after taking care of the additional enemies, it ended up taking us over 300 downs to finally get the job done. But goddamn, we did it, and that's what matters. And then we took his boat, which, by the way, I was able to access this area before I did that little magic trick with the door because no enemies spawned in for some reason until I opened that door, so I could have just stolen the boat with nobody around, but the game wouldn't let me. So we met a guy named Moen who was going to be our guide, and he led us to the laboratory where I soft-locked myself with a car. 2 butchers, 1 vehicle. The head scientist said that he needed a blood sample from one of the local natives. When I got to the native camp, they demanded that I prove myself in a test of strength before they would cooperate, but they had no idea what they were about to witness. It started out with some good old-fashioned slapping Sam B around until their limbs fell off, and then 2 infected started spawning at the same time, which was no big deal. You know, I just let them play a little bit of Sam B volleyball until flaming infected started spawning, and then I just ignored them and I let the fire do the work for me. But this still was not enough to impress Ope and his tribe, so I had to face off against their strongest infected warrior, and it went fine. I mean, it took a long time as expected, but it all went according to plan. After this, Ope was so impressed that he offered to personally escort me to the Tomb of the Ancients and get an even better sample from a mummy. And by escort me, I mean have me constantly defend him as he dives headfirst into trouble. Look, there are a lot of escort missions in this game, and this one is by far the worst. Like, it wasn't too bad at first, he was just really slow, but then when we reached his home village, everything fell apart, and I was pretty much soft-locked. I was stuck at a checkpoint where Ope would just spawn right next to a thug and a huge crowd of zombies, and no matter how hard I tried, he could not survive the encounter. If I got knocked down to deal backfire damage, he'd instantly get nuked, and if I tried to take the aggro of all the regular zombies, he'd end up dying from the thug or just a series of 1v1s. Now you might be thinking that the smart thing to do would be to clear out all of the infected ahead of time so that Ope can just breeze right through, but I learned from one of Crayfish's videos that the zombies just respawn anyway. I mean, he even went as far as going out of bounds in the beginning and then clearing out the entire map from the end to the beginning, and yet the zombies always respawned with each checkpoint. So, naturally, I summoned him once again, and together we were able to keep the aggro off of Ope and dispatch the zombies using the backfire method. Still completely pacifist, no killing whatsoever. It was actually super close, like Ope pretty much had 0 health at one point. One more hit and he would have died, but we went full Secret Service mode and did everything we could to protect our boy. Oh yeah, that's not even like close to the last escort quest, by the way. We met some NPC named Yerima, and we discovered that our boy Moen was under attack, and just like with Cinemoy at the beginning of the game, Moen was locked into a grapple from the beginning, so I freed him with a stun bomb, I took the aggro of all the zombies in the area, and I volunteered as a human punching bag in order to save his life. And then I struggled through another escort quest with pacifist Yerima, but it turns out she doesn't take much damage unless she's being grappled, and when she gets hit by an infected, she just falls to the ground and they stop attacking her, so it wasn't too bad, but I did have to end up using another stun bomb. So, prison was
Look at a fine ass on that one.
pretty much exactly as expected. Naturally, I tried to fit in, you know, I started breaking the rules, like this part where the alarm goes off and you're supposed to go the long way around through a crowd of zombies, but hey, pro tip, just phase through the window. Another pro tip, download NordVPN. I met a friendly face in one of the cells and I made him my bitch. But of course that meant that I had to look out for him and protect my property. So I charged forward and I took the beating of a lifetime to show everyone who's boss in this final escort quest. Unfortunately, he just randomly died, so I tried again, but then he got destroyed by the thug. So on the 3rd attempt, I went ahead and I took care of every zombie in the way before starting the escort quest, just praying that they won't respawn. I even destroyed the ram at the bottom just in case. And you know what? After that, things went really smoothly. Not a single zombie stood in his way, except for a huge prison guard with a lot of health. So about 45 minutes later, the only thing he was guarding was the gates of hell. I don't know, did that sound cool? Did that even make sense? Anyway, the gang leader demanded that they be armed with a bunch of guns, and honestly, I couldn't see what could possibly go wrong, so I made my way over to a gamer named Kevin. He needed me to retrieve a keycard, which was super easy, but I thought I would just take a moment to take advantage of this situation right here with the humans versus the zombies, and I found this one infected that was pretty much a serial killer with a knife. I just let him loose in a room full of guards, and it was glorious. Kevin started hacking his way into the armory, but the dipshit opened some storage room full of zombies instead. This is where you're supposed to protect him, so I figured the best way to do that was just lock myself in the room with them and do my best to survive the mosh pit. And like everything in this damn playthrough, it took a while, but we got the job done and retrieved the weapons. Then I came across a haunted room, I did some more parkour. Techland, seriously, I think I'm onto something here. And then I took another window shortcut before it was revealed that pretty much everyone was dead except for the ladies. So we got into an elevator, took a nap, then woke up on the rooftop ready to fight the final boss, a fake Australian. I honestly can't tell if it's better or worse than an actual Australian. Of course, there were a few gun enemies that needed to be killed, so I summoned Lobster the Bulleted one final time, and we made another huge discovery. If you're holding a propane tank while an enemy is shooting at you, that thing blows up, and it deals a lot of damage to you and any enemies around you. And I really wish that we'd tried this earlier, because it would have sped up some sections a lot, and maybe even allowed me to take care of some enemies solo? Anyway, I said a final farewell to my partner in crime, avoided all the zombies, and squared up against Ryder White himself. Although it turns out the zombies don't exactly disappear once you reach the cutscene, so I took them over to a burning building and let the dipshits take care of themselves. Then Ryder joined in, and something completely unexpected happened. He knocked me into the fiery building, and usually you can't get in there because of the fire in the doorway, but he knocked me straight through the barrier, and you know what? I wasn't even taking fire damage once I was inside. I noticed that a flaming infected kept spawning from a completely untextured room, so I did some snooping around and I found the perfect pit for an epic finale. I involuntarily made my way down, I baited Ryder into joining me, and... guys, he fell out of the map. I shit you not, I saw him go below me in the minimap, and then the final cutscene hit. He died without me even having to do anything. Truly the ultimate pacifist victory. So there you have it. Can you beat Dead Island without killing a single enemy? Yes. Yes, you can. Can you do the entire thing solo? I don't know, I really don't, but I know what you can do. You can go ahead and subscribe to Crayfish the Arrowed because he helped me out so much, and he also makes Dead Island content.